What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Gamescript. Tonight, I'm going to be looking at the Thursday night game between the New York Giants and the Dallas Cowboys. And a lot of ownership in these DraftKings Showdown contests seems to be concentrating on the Dallas Cowboys, but should it be? I'll dig into it right after this. What's up, guys? Simon Edwards at Pumacom with Heat Seeker Sports, and you're watching Gamescript. Today, I'm going to be breaking down the Dallas Cowboys at the New York Giants. It's a 45.5-point total with Dallas as 5.5-point favorites. Should they be, though? Because Dallas has not looked good. Their offense is not functioning, and their defense looks sloppy. And Giants have actually been playing pretty decent. They've got some solid offensive weapons this year, and their defenses looked pretty good, or they have some good pieces to it at least. So I'll dig into that in a minute. Make sure to hit that like button. Looking for 30 likes to trigger a shorter video later on. You're going to want to subscribe to the channel so you can sign up for alerts to get that shorter video later on. And you want to do that to help me get to 1,000 subscribers anyways. I'm about 70 subscribers off, and I'll be putting out a special show, maybe a early slate show or something like that. Once I hit that 1,000 subscriber mark. So help me out there. I'm only about 70 away from that and been going at a good pace so far. So let's dig into this game. It's DraftKings Showdown, as always, and got a lot of offensive weapons in this one that we can consider. CeeDee Lamb is likely going to be the highest owned captain in this one, as he probably should be. Problems with CeeDee Lamb. He hasn't been doing too well this year. He had a holdout for most of the offseason, and he didn't even start practicing with the team until probably the week before the season started or thereabouts. So CeeDee Lamb, very rusty coming into this season. We see this happen a lot with these holdouts where they come into the season, usually with running backs, and they're very sloppy and not very good. But on top of that, Dallas is a completely different team this year. They lost a lot of their O-line. Dak has been struggling, and Dak had a good game last week, but CeeDee has definitely been struggling, and now he faces off against the Giants defense, which has some injuries that are going to help him out. It looks like Drew Phillips is out, and Adoree Jackson is also out. And Drew Phillips is their starting slot corner. So that's good news for CeeDee Lamb, because CeeDee Lamb's running about 57% of his routes in the slot. And it'll be interesting to see how the Giants try to compensate for that. But CeeDee Lamb, as far as the points allowed per game matchup goes, Giants have been solid against the slot. They're only allowing 5.8 DraftKings points a game to this slot position. But like I said, their starting slot corner is out. He's a rookie. He's been pretty good. So it's looking like a improved matchup for CeeDee Lamb, which is not good for the Giants if they want to win this game. So moving on to the next guy, we'll check out Malik Nabers. Nabers has been a stud. He's getting a lot of targets. Thing I like about Nabers, too, is they're scheming him opposite the secondary cornerbacks. They're trying to avoid those marquee matchups with him, and he's been getting a lot of targets. He got 12 last week, 18 the week before that, and he's just a solid overall option. 28 DraftKings points in week 3, 31.7 in week 2. And as far as wideouts, defense on Dallas's side, Dallas has been giving up 19.4 DraftKings points a game to the wideout position. So not a huge number. That's more of a middling number. If Malik Nabers is getting matched up in good matchups and he's going to get the volume, he's definitely in play. So Dak Prescott had a good game last week against Baltimore. Baltimore's defense been a little bit off this year. Now, he's going to have a rough time against the Giants pass rush. They got a few key weapons in there that have been playing really well. The only thing he's got going for him is that situation with the matchup for CeeDee Lamb. And depending on how they handle that situation, I don't know if Prescott's going to be able to put up enough points to be in the optimal tonight. So depending on what your game script is, what narrative you want to go with, Prescott might be dumping off all night. The weakened offensive line against a good pass rush of the Giants. The Giants have done pretty well versus quarterbacks this year. Giants are allowing only 14.5 DraftKings points a game to the quarterback position, like on top of 5.4 to the slot position, weakened by obviously the injuries in the secondary, but they've been solid overall against the pass. Where they've been weak is wideouts. They've been allowing 26.5 DraftKings points a game to wideouts. So keep that in mind with Dak Prescott tonight. If he's in a situation where he's going to be stopped or handled for most of the night, and then has to launch a few bombs later on in the game, which some of these deeper pass catchers might take advantage of. Daniel Jones is doing pretty good. Like last couple weeks, he's put up 18 DraftKings points. That should be enough to get him in an optimal for a showdown lineup. That was against Cleveland and Washington. Cleveland, really good defense. Washington, really bad defense. But Daniel Jones delivered, and that coincides when he started targeting or connecting more with Malik Nabers. So, don't be surprised to see Daniel Jones show up in an optimal, and he's cheaper than Dak tonight as well. As far as the flex cost on these guys, we're looking at 10,400 for Dak versus 9,400 for Daniel Jones. And, Dak in general just has not done really well versus New York when playing in New York. A couple of his past stat lines while playing in New York: 143 yards passing, no touchdowns. 2001, he played in New York, 217 passing yards, 1 touchdown. So he has struggled against New York playing in New York in the past, but we're looking at a different defensive coordinator here. But they do have better weapons as well on New York side. So, take that what you will for Dak Prescott's prospects tonight. But I kind of like Daniel Jones better. Daniel Jones, I think he's also struggled against Dallas. Let's look at what Daniel Jones has done against Dallas. I think he's lost like his last 9 matchups against Dallas or something like that. But he hasn't had a weapon like Malik Nabers. I think Malik Nabers is a game changer, and they've improved their offensive line. They've done the exact opposite of Dallas. So there's an improved offensive line here for the Giants, and he's got a better weapon in Malik Nabers. So let's see what he's done against the Cowboys here. Let's see. At New York, he did not play in that game. Lost 0-40. This game was, let's look at these home games. 196 yards in that one with 79 yards rushing. Different defense, so, take this what you will, but it kind of gives you an idea. He was inactive for that one. These guys, like both Daniel Jones and Dak, have been inactive for a large part of these matchups. And then 229 yards, 2 touchdowns. So Dak, he hasn't really done too much against Dallas, but not overly worried about that because he's got improved weapons, which is the opposite of Dak, who has, downgraded. So keep that in mind with Daniel Jones. Maybe we see him do a little bit better than he's done against Dallas in the past. Devin Singletary is doing really well this year. You see he scored 20 DraftKings points last week, 15.5 the week before that. But the thing that's key with Devin Singletary is he's playing well. He's missed, he's a top 5 guy with missed tackles. He's a top 5 guy with yards after contact. He's having a good year His defenses, he played against Cleveland, he played against Washington, he's played against Minnesota, and he's done well in his past couple matchups. But Devin Singletary is interesting at 8,200 this week against Dallas, who has been giving up 36.5 DraftKings points a game to running backs. And it's not really a position that they can focus on because they can't forget about Nabers out there. So they can't really stack the box against trying to defend Singletary, hoping that, like that is going to help them win this game when they're leaving Nabers with less defenders on them. So keep that in mind with Singletary tonight. Ferguson is basically the number 2 receiver on the Cowboys. Last week he had 15.5 DraftKings points. As far as the matchup, New York is allowing 8.9 DraftKings points a game to the tight end position this year. So keep that in mind. But Jake Ferguson is basically the number 2 receiver in this offense. And if CeeDee Lamb is going to be covered adequately this week, then maybe that leaves us with more opportunity for Jake Ferguson tonight. Brandon Cooks, his snap share has been about 80% in all 3 games. So he's been pretty steady with his snap share, but he hasn't been getting the targets really. He got 6 targets or haven't been getting the receptions, 6 targets, 2 targets, 7 targets. Only 2 receptions on those 6 targets last week against Baltimore and 4 receptions against Cleveland. So hasn't done anything really in the fantasy box score for us. But Brandon Cooks would be interesting if you think that New York is going to compensate for those missing slot corners and put more focus on put their best corner on CeeDee Lamb and their best perimeter corner on CeeDee Lamb instead of being out there guarding guys like Brandon Cooks. Rico Dowdle, kind of a weird backfield here with Rico Dowdle and Zeke Elliott. Dowdle, 8 attempts looks like per game, just about, but he's been getting 5 targets the last couple games, which is good. He hasn't done anything though. I was thinking that Rico Dowdle would be the main running back in this offense in the preseason, but it's not turning out that way. Well, maybe it is because Zeke's only gotten 3 attempts, 6 attempts, and 10 attempts. He hasn't been getting the targets. If you think that New York plays with a lead, maybe you lean more on Dowdle than Zeke. As far as the matchup, though, Dallas has been allowing 21.2 DraftKings points a game to running backs, so it's a middling matchup to begin with, and you got like scrubbier running backs in this game, so maybe that's something to avoid in this one, especially at their prices. We're looking at 6,400 for Dowdle and 6,200 for Zeke, so not great there. Jalen Tolbert is a guy I'm interested in. His snaps have kicked up. He's getting about the same average now at about 80%, and he is going to be our sneakier guy to target. He's got 5 targets last week, 9 targets versus New Orleans. He's been putting up the fantasy points with 14 points and 13 points. Let me compare the ownership on these guys so I have an idea if he is going to be less or more owned than Cooks here. I see Cooks projected at total ownership of 25%. And Tolbert is projected at 20%. So you get an ownership discount, you get a price discount on Tolbert. You get a lot of goodies with leaning on Tolbert as opposed to Cooks in this matchup. He's at 5,800 on DraftKings. And if they decide to put that primary perimeter corner on CeeDee Lamb to compensate for the injuries they have there, then that's going to leave guys like Jalen Tolbert against this vulnerable New York secondary, which is allowing 26.5 DraftKings points a game to wideouts. So keep that in mind with Tolbert tonight. He's a good guy to keep in our player pool. Cowboys D, really depends on your game script. I don't think I'm going to go too heavy on the Cowboys D. I kind of favor the Giants in this game, but the Cowboys D is also 5,400. So I would much rather use Aubrey in this game. Aubrey can, kick the hell out of the ball, and Dallas should be able to move the ball in this one. But with that good Giants defense, expect them to stall out maybe in the red zone or close to the red zone, and that is where you've seen me pick these kickers before. Aubrey is a stud kicker, and he's going to be in this good matchup with the Giants potentially slowing down the touchdowns in this one. So Aubrey is going to be in a good spot. Kicked like a 65-yard field goal the other day. Wandale Robinson, I think he is going to be in a good spot this week. Wandale is right there with Malik Nabers against the type of coverage that that Dallas runs. So let me check that out real quick. Get you guys an actual number on that. So I'm seeing versus zone coverage. First of all, the Cowboys are running the 30th most zone or man coverage in the league. So they're running a whole lot of zone coverage. And in zone coverage, you see Wandale getting a 25% target share, and Malik Nabers also gets a 25% target share. So that gives you an idea of the type of defense matchups, scheme matchups that we're seeing here with these Giants. And so that's according to PFF. So that sets us up nicely with Wandale if we're looking for one of these salary relief guys. He hasn't. He's done okay. He's done 13 points last week, 10 points in week 2, and 12 points in week 1. A lot of targets, 8, 4, and 12. So Wandale Robinson doesn't have the best slot matchup because Dallas is only giving up 5.8 DraftKings points a game to slots. Not much better than the Giants versus slots. But, like Wandale is a guy that we can leave in our player pools this week, just based on, like how they like to target him against the type of coverage that Dallas is going to be running. Graham Gano's on injured reserve. Not too interested. I believe it's Greg Joseph is the kicker. Like he missed, I think he missed something recently. Maybe it was an extra point. But yeah, Greg Joseph has not been, he's basically off the street for the Giants. Not a go-to guy, probably. I think I would definitely lean Aubrey over Joseph, but it's going to be a $600 difference. If you can get to Aubrey, go for it. But, like if you need to put in Joseph, not a big deal. Wandale Robinson, I would take over Joseph if you're left with that type of decision. Kevontae Turpin, he's a guy that could come out of nowhere. He's kind of like one of those gadget guys that kind of comes out of nowhere for Dallas a lot. I started noticing him last season, or maybe it was 2 seasons ago, but he got 4 targets and 3 targets the last couple weeks. Hasn't translated to many yards, only 4 yards and 51 yards. So it's like that gadget type of guy, but he's got the speed to break one off. So Turpin, he's a good guy to have in your player pool, but he's pretty expensive at 4K, honestly. And I like these kickers better if you're in that situation. Giants D, I actually don't mind the Giants D this week because, like Dallas's offense, they've just been like they've been arguing with each other. They've been at each other's throats, complaining. Like they seem checked out in practice. Like this Dallas team is going to crumble at some point. I don't know if it's going to be against the Giants, but Mike McCarthy's not the type of leader that's going to hold these guys together. And Dallas is just going to fall apart at some point this season. And it could be starting tonight against the Giants. But, Giants defense, I don't mind at 3,600 tonight. That's a cheap option for us. Slayton, you want to keep an eye on Slayton and the injury report. He's got a injured thumb, I believe. So you want to see if he's not out. That's going to be good for us because that's going to give Jalen Hyatt more run. and Hyatt is down here at 600. That's going to give us a ton of salary relief. And Hyatt is one of these guys on New York that, he just has not delivered. They brought him in, I think it was a 3rd-round pick or something like that. And, he's a speedster. They were expecting, decent things out of him. There was a lot of hype around him, but he just has not delivered yet. But Hyatt has had a couple moments. He's had a couple flashes so far. So in his young career, but he's only at 600. He'd be a good guy for us with trying to jam in some of those studs. So that's if Slayton is out. Otherwise, he's only getting like a 20% snap rate, which is not good. Dalvin Cook, not really interested in Cook. He hasn't done anything yet, but maybe he just hasn't been active. Doesn't expect Cook to be elevated from the practice squad ahead of Thursday's game, according to Jerry Jones. So Cook is probably not going to be active tonight. But, with the struggles that they've had at running back, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets an opportunity sometime soon. Tracy is pretty good running back. Hasn't gotten a lot in the fantasy realm yet. 5 attempts, 23 yards. Hasn't really had many opportunities or anything like that. But with this Dallas run D, I would keep him probably in your player pool if you're multi-entry. That's $2,800 for him. And he's got that same matchup that Singletary has, where they're allowing like 36 DraftKings points a game. As far as tight ends, Theo Johnson is the main tight end for New York. I've seen 4 targets, 3 targets. Hasn't done anything with him yet. Dallas's matchup, same as New York. They're only allowing 7.5 DraftKings points a game to the tight end position. So, a guy that we can keep on our radar, but not necessarily a guy that I'm trying to go over the field on. Bellinger's the other tight end for New York. Deuce Vaughn, he's been getting some work lately too. There's a lot of like these cheaper, scrubbier guys that have been getting a decent amount of work. Only 2 attempts, but he had 2 targets last week. 4 attempts with 1 target the week before that. Like I said, with these struggling running backs, you never know who's going to be getting more play if they decide to run with a hot hand, and maybe Deuce Vaughn does something. But I'm not overly excited about it. And I guess Luke would be another one of these guys, but he hasn't done anything. So yeah, he's probably going to be scratch or something. But that gives you the rundown on these guys. So we'll get into the lineup building here. Before I do that, hit that like button. Looking for 30 likes to trigger the short video later on today. And make sure to subscribe to the channel. I am 70 off of 1,000 subscribers, which is, like a goal of mine. So if you guys can help me out there, if you've benefited from the show at all, like with any of the nuggets that you hear on it, or, like any of the actual picks or anything like that, or maybe you've built some of the lineups like I am on the show and you've had success with it. I know I've gotten some YouTube comments from guys who like won some pretty big tournaments, but I appreciate when you guys hit that like button. Obviously this is free content, so that's what helps me out. All right, so I'm just going to take a drink real quick and we'll get into the lineup build. All right. So I think the optimal is going to either be leaning towards CeeDee Lamb or Dak Prescott in the captain spot. The one that I got on RotoGrinders lineup builder had Dak Prescott in the captain, probably because of that price discount. Then they had CeeDee Lamb in there too. So we got a Dak Prescott to CeeDee Lamb stack. They're also putting in Daniel Jones. He's obviously got that rushing upside. And you got Wandale for the other main guy here. Then they go a little bit scrubby. Actually, no, I take that back. They put in Ferguson too. So there's your double stack with Dak, concentrated offense. they got you with CeeDee Lamb and Jake Ferguson, which isn't bad considering the situation with the New York secondary. Running it back with Daniel Jones and Wandale Robinson, and then you're at 1,400 left, and you can go into those scrubbier guys that we're taking a look at. I would probably Vaughn or Hyatt, depending on Slayton's status, would lean that way if I was going in this direction. At least with Hyatt, you leave some salary on the table. You're leaving about 800 on there. Let's see what it would look like with CeeDee Lamb in the captain, though. Let's say CeeDee Lamb's getting more dump-offs and PPR points. So I'm going to leave Prescott out of this one. I'm going to put in Nabers and Singletary because I think those are the guys that are going to be the main focus for the Giants, which isn't, like breaking any news there. I'm going to put Aubrey in there too at 5K and get us some salary relief. That's going to leave us with 4,150. In this situation, maybe, let's see, trying to look at some of these cheaper guys. Wandale makes sense in this one. So I'm 3-2 in favor of the Giants so far. Then you got like options like Slayton and Cook and, Cook, we don't know if he's going to play, but Tracy, if you want to go double on those Giants running backs. I just don't like where we can go with Lamb in the captain. Like he's expensive. He limits us with what we can do. But I do feel like this is probably about as solid as you can get, like with players to put in as far as their matchups. Wandale's got that zone coverage targets. Aubrey, like what I was saying earlier, if New York is stopping Dallas closer to the end zone, then Aubrey comes into play. Singletary's got that great matchup against the Giants, against Dallas's run defense. Nabers is just Nabers. And then CeeDee Lamb, having those injuries to New York secondary. And then that sets us up with options like Darius Slayton, Tyrone Tracy, like any of these guys, Deuce Vaughn, you can leave salary on the table in that situation, take a differentiation approach with CeeDee Lamb. If you wanted to put like Dak in over Singletary, that would put you in the 1,300 range. You got guys like Deuce Vaughn and Schoon. I wouldn't use Schoonmaker if I got. Do I have him? No, I don't have Ferguson in this one. Jalen Hyatt, you got options here. Let's try it a little bit different though. Obviously, this one doesn't have a quarterback in it, or it didn't until I put Dak Prescott in there. But I don't think you necessarily need quarterbacks in tonight's game. I'm not buying the 5.5 point favorites on Dallas, just the way that they've been acting lately. I just don't buy it. I think the Giants are going to keep it closer to that. So let's get rid of this. Let's put Singletary in that captain spot, knowing that good matchup that they have against Dallas's run D. So Singletary, I'm going to put Lamb in there. I'm going to put Nabers in there as well. So we're left with 5K per guy. Going to go down here a bit. I'm going to put in Aubrey again. Where's he at? He's at 5K. So I'm going to put in Aubrey again here. As you can see, I don't have any quarterbacks in here yet, but we'll try something in a minute here to try something different. But I got Lamb, Nabers, Aubrey. All those guys have volume or matchups that I like. If we wanted to put in, let's put in Wandale again, or you could put in Tolbert. Let's put in Tolbert just based on that the whiteout situation in Dallas. That leaves us with 4,300. In that situation, you put in like Slayton or like one of these scrubbier guys, Giants D, if you wanted to correlate with Singletary. And if you're going to do that, I might put in Wandale over Tolbert. That would leave us with 5,300. I mean, that situation, you could do double kicker, but like I said, like I'm not overly excited about Joseph. You could put that Giants D in there, which correlates. It'd be a 4-2 build still in favor of the Giants. That's going to be a difference between like 20%. Let me double check that. 4-2 Giants are going to be 20% owned versus 4-2 Dallas, which is going to be 31% owned. So that's going to get you a little bit different there. But let's get Singletary out of there. Let's put in Nabers as the captain. I'm going to throw Singletary in this one. I'm going to get rid of Lamb. Let's say that they're able to stop Lamb. They're putting that, like more coverage, pulling the perimeter guys and putting them, like more on Lamb. And let's say that Ferguson takes advantage of that. That's going to leave us with 8,800. Situation like that, let's get rid of Wandale. Let's put in Daniel Jones. It's going to leave us with 4,200. And you're in this range where you can use the Giants D and stuff like that. Let's try something different. Let's take out Aubrey and let's put in. Where's Tolbert? Let's put in Tolbert, and that's going to leave us with 3,400. That leaves us with Slayton. So you'd have Jones to Slayton and Nabers, and then you'd have, like Tolbert and Ferguson, picking up the slack for Dallas if CeeDee Lamb gets shut down, which we've seen happen this year so far. You got Singletary in that great matchup against the Dallas defense. Let's swap out Singletary as a captain here. And let's put Nabers in there as well. You fading Lamb once again. 4,700. That leaves us with, at least you get to put the kickers into play there. Giants D on top of, like Slayton and those other options. So $100 off Wandale too. So if you could figure out a way to get Wandale in there, might be interesting. But, this is a few directions you can go. A lot of upside to the lineup if you can tell yourself a story that fades CeeDee Lamb. The story that I would tell with that would be the New York secondary is going to put more focus on CeeDee Lamb. They're already decimated, and then that's going to leave guys like Tolbert and Cooks running wild on the outside. And, maybe they connect on a touchdown or something like that. Tolbert has been 80% routes, 80% snap rate so far. And he's going to get, like these opportunities deep against a vulnerable Giants secondary. Like I mentioned, they're giving up about 26 DraftKings points a game to those wideouts. So that puts total situation. That also gets us Jones, who has that upside, same upside that Singletary would have against that Dallas weakened run defense, and like Nabers, of course, getting the volume in a situation like that. And then Slayton, it would give us a second receiver to plug in with Daniel Jones there. So 4-2 Giants, don't shy away from it tonight. I think the Giants are a different team this year. That remains to be seen. They're only a few games into the season, but I don't think that the Cowboys are going to be able to hold it together throughout the season. It's just a matter of when they crumble. So hit that like button. Give me the 30 likes. Subscribe to the channel. 30 likes will trigger the short later on. You subscribe to the channel because you don't want to miss when I post that short. I usually post it like an hour or so before lock. So thanks, guys, and I will see you later.